And with that, we welcome you into the Kohl's Tractor and Equipment Football Roundtable. We are live at the Applebee's in Farmington. We're doing good in the neighborhood on a wonderful Tuesday night. You can stop by and get some great specials, good drink specials. Got some spooky sips you can come by and snag. Yeah, Hal, you're pointing to the Dracula's juice. I know that's something that's on your mind.
His fangs are showing.
Yeah, exactly. They got all the best stuff here. Griffin Weinberg, your host of the Kohl's Tractor and Equipment Football Roundtable. Thanks for listening on 98.5 FM, online at mymoinfo.com, or if you're streaming on Twitter and YouTube, hello to you. Sitting across from me, Garrett Davenport, next to Garrett in the blue polo, Chad Speaker, our fearless leader, and then across from Chad, KJF Sports Director Hal Neisler. Fellas, it's another great week of high school football we had in the area. Had some fun games that we get to talk about over the course of the show, and we'll break down some of the other games that we had in the area last Friday, preview this week's games, and we'll have a special conversation with Brian Jones and a couple of players from the North County Raiders a little bit later on in the show too. But fellas, just another good week of high school football. We could talk some districts. I know that there wasn't a lot of movement as far as the district seedings go. It feels like we're kind of at the point in the season where you need a seismic shift, maybe a big altering game that might make a move in the districts. But I think that we're starting to get a pretty familiar idea of where some of these teams might end up as far as the seeding goes. However, I know Class 4 District 1, there definitely could be some movement, especially with a matchup, Chad, coming up this Friday. There could be some alterations as far as those go.
Yeah, a couple little tweaks. I mean, most of them held where they were. The one I kind of looked at, Seckman won, but fell a spot, and the what caught my attention is they go from second to third. So, that costs you a home game in the second round. You have to play at number 2 if seeds hold. So that's the one I was looking at. But the game really, we've seen this coming the entire time. Hillsboro's at the top of Class 4 District 1. You've got North County solid right there at number 2. And basically Farmington playing Festus this coming Friday for that 3 seed.
Yeah. So it's going to be interesting how that plays out. Hal, you had a game. It was from 2 Class 1 teams this past Friday. They're not in the same district, but they were in the same conference, and that kind of put one team cemented their top spot in the conference.
Right. St. Vincent, they came back after that second half and made some adjustments, and they did beat St. Pius 21-6. So that was a real good ball game towards the very end, because it was a very brutal battle throughout the game. So that's the way that one turned out.
Schaff sounded like he was a good run pass guy.
He is. I watched him warm up.
Yeah.
And then he gets out there and he'll just they'll release early and boom, he just hits them. And then it's the yardage after the tackle. I mean, that's a big part of it. But he does have a very good arm. I asked him, I kind of walked by him and I said, "How far can you chuck it?" He says, "I don't know."
He knows.
But I'm like, "Oh, okay."
Yeah. He's being a nice high school kid, trying to be a very nice.
But yes, he's a very good passer.
Yeah, they got a very good team. I think they stayed at number 10. Rather, they moved up a spot to number 9 in Class 1. The St. Vincent Indians did. Not much other movement. I know in Class 3, Valley Catholic stays at 3rd in the media polls. Central, they go to 10th. In Class 4, Hillsboro, they stay at 6th. And Seckman is still receiving a few votes in Class 6. You heard it in the opening for the show, though, Garrett. The call from last year. Well, I think Chad had the call for Farmington Poplar Bluff. They almost had another miracle in them last Friday.
Yeah, Farmington coming back from really down a lot and almost being able to pull it out. And, I mean, it was kind of a shocker because Poplar Bluff really did control that entire game. Mm-hmm. But Farmington, I mean, they still have some fight in them. So, again, we go back to, Class 4 District 1. I think those top 4 seeds, I think all those games really can be a battle 1 through 4. That's going to be an exciting district. I'm really excited to see exactly how they're going to match up and what everything does. It really does come down to Friday, though.
Yeah, we'll see. We're going to break out that game next, but first, I just want to give a shout out to Lydia Hackbar. She's our Applebee's of Farmington Athlete of the Week. St. Pius tennis player, going to the Class 2 state singles tournament starting on Thursday. So a big shout out to her. And we always love Applebee's. Thank you to Amy Cousins for letting us set up here every Tuesday. But we got some football to break down, and on the other side of this break, we'll talk about that game between Farmington and Poplar Bluff. You're listening to the Kohl's Tractor and Equipment Football Roundtable on 98.5 FM. And Equipment Football Roundtable on 98.5, mymoinfo.com. We're streaming on Twitter and YouTube, and you can stop by and get a Mucho Bahama Mama for $5.99 from Applebee's. They're always doing good in the neighborhood. Let's break down that AM 800 KREI game from Friday. Farmington, we talked about it in the open. They almost made the comeback against Poplar Bluff, but the Mules defeated the Knights 34-21 on the Knights' homecoming night. Bluff, they did have a 27-7 lead in the fourth quarter, but the Knights would not go away. Farmington, they got their offense to the goal line, and then sophomore Brett Dry punched it in.
Let's see if they go for number 18. Let's see if they get it inside. Brett Dry, QB sneak, right up the gut, touchdown. Farmington, 3 yards away. Dry gets under center, just carries the pile forward. 27-13 the score. Don't go anywhere. Farmington gets a stop, and they might be back into this ball game. But
well, the Knights, they did get a stop, and then on 3rd down and 1, they forced the Mules to punt the football away. Dry then throws a dime to Braden Berry for 52 yards to get to the red zone, and then Casey McLean, he powered it into the end zone for his second score of the night.
3rd down and short coming up. Cannot get a first down. Ball's placed at the 4-yard line. Case McLean had his number called twice in a row. He gets it again, up the gut, touchdown Farmington. Casey McLean punches it in from 4 yards away, and Farmington clawing back into this one. 3:24 left to go. It's a 7-point lead for Bluff, but an extra point can make it a 6-point ball game, so do not go anywhere.
Garrett, Farmington has probably been most successful to Braden Berry on the screen pass that they like to utilize, but they have gone downfield a couple times. What was that 52-yarder? What route was that?
He was just running a post route down the seam.
Yeah.
He beat his man one-on-one, and it was really one of the only times that Braden Berry found one-on-one with his defender. And really, the Poplar Bluff secondary was really locking that down all game long. I'm just assuming they didn't see it coming on that one, and Braden Berry did some work, and that was really what Farmington needed. The offense was really struggling to get going in those first 3 quarters, and you saw that play develop, and it was wide open, and Braden Berry had a step. Maybe he goes and gets and scores a touchdown on that play, but they're still able to score on that drive. But it was really kind of just a preview of what that connection can be like, but they just haven't been able to find it downfield as much this season.
sometimes when a team is coming back like that from a big deficit, you can kind of feel the energy in the stadium change too. Is that what it sort of felt like?
A little bit. It really did feel like that, especially on that 3rd down and 1 stop when it was 27-14. You can start to feel the momentum shifting. There was a 4th down and 1, and Poplar Bluff decided not to go for it, and they took a delay of game and then punted the football away. And then once Farmington got the football back, you kind of just saw that they had a little skip to their step, and they were really ready for that offensive drive. And you can kind of tell that the Poplar Bluff fans, I was right behind them, they were starting to be a little quiet, while Farmington was starting to get a little rowdy on the bench, and it eventually led to a score. It really just felt like Farmington had all the momentum.
Yeah, well, they were riding with it. Then on defense, they get a stop, and then they only needed to use one timeout, really. So the Knights, they get the ball back with a little over 2 minutes to go in the game, but Farmington tried to get a little too tricky with it. Tried a halfback pass. It gets intercepted by the Mules. Bluff immediately goes down to put the game away.
Mason West takes the snap, rolls out to his right, finds Matlock, makes a man miss, going down the sideline to the 20, to the 10, to the 5, cuts inside, touchdown Mules. Chris Matlock, the shifty receiver, goes 34 yards after the pass from Mason West, and this game is on ice.
Yeah, that was it. Farmington, they ended up falling to 3-4, and then they'll have Festus at Hale Memorial Stadium on KREI this Friday. That seemed just like a heartbreaking loss for Farmington, 2 in a row for the Knights.
It definitely was, and I think with that play, you just try to catch them off guard just a little bit. And I don't know if it's the exact same play that they ran last year to win it, but you try to catch them off guard, try to get and steal a win. But this time the Mules were ready for it. They have a lot of talent in their secondary. I mean, really great athletes. So even if there was a step open, they were going to be able to pick that thing off, because Poplar Bluff really, really had some good athletes. But it was a really close game. Again, I reiterate the fact that it felt like Farmington was just completely out of it. But to really stare at adversity with a young team and be able to come back into this game and give your team a chance, I mean, that's a lot of growth from a team that really hasn't found themselves in that kind of situation. We talked about North County game. They were down in that game just a little bit, but this is really only the second time they've had to face that against a Class 5 school. So
Farmington's made a living the last few years out of winning games like that, though. And then your margins are so narrow. I mean, that a kicker and a punter in Kraus a couple of years ago, like he'll put a punt inside the 5, or he'll hit a field goal from 35 at the end to win it, and they would make a play here or there. But just those few plays are going the other way this year, so they have to kind of try to find a way to kind of just turn those few plays around.
Yeah, it's going to be a tough one this Friday, too, against Festus. They almost feel similar to Farmington, and they're having these close games. Maybe a few plays go their way. They have dueling 3-4 records, and we'll talk a little bit more about that one down the road. For now, we'll take another break, and then when we come back on the other side, we'll break down the Jefferson County game of the night between St. Vincent and St. Pius. You're listening to the Kohl's Tractor and Equipment Football Roundtable on 98.5 FM. Welcome back into the Kohl's Tractor and Equipment Football Roundtable, live on J98, MyMoInfo.com, streaming on Twitter and YouTube. Griffin Weinberg, Garrett Davenport, Chad Speaker, Hal Neisler with you, breaking down some of our football action on regional radio last Friday. Let's head over to the AM 1400 KJEF game, where the St. Vincent Indians beat the St. Pius Lancers 21-6. The Indians, they were the first team on the scoreboard with this Christian Schaff to Caden Kossel touchdown pass in the first quarter.
Ball is marked at the 27. In the air, has a man open, and it's a touchdown. Indians go in the air from the 27-yard line. 27-yard touchdown pass. And catching the ball, Caden Castle. He is a senior wide receiver.
And these teams, they always find a way to have a great ending to their games, and, they always keep it close. So it's no surprise that St. Pius, they ended up in a bit of a defensive battle after that with St. Vincent. Then Pius gets on the board with 6:27 left in the first half as Lancer running back Dabrian Moss rambled his way into the end zone.
All the ends are in tight. And handoff goes to Moss, and he scores. He's in for the touchdown. Dabrian Moss from 5 yards out. He takes the handoff into the end zone. He makes it 7-6.
So it feels like, St. Vincent, Hal, they're always an offensive, sort of team, but their defense has really stepped up this year, too. They go against a really good St. Pius defense this season. So, did it even feel like there was any hope for any more scoring after that little defensive back and forth?
We kind of wondered that because both teams would do well, move it down the field a little bit, and then a costly penalty would push them back. And then they would just fizzle out and then exchange possessions. And we did that for quite a bit in that ball game. So, the penalties and, that's what happens.
It all adds up.
It's like one step up and 5 steps back. And that happened for both teams.
It's the worst when you feel like you're doing something good and then that yellow piece of laundry falls down on the ground.
Yeah.
Forgot to mention that St. Pius, they missed the extra point, or the attempt failed, so it's 7-6 St. Vincent here. And it stayed that way until the fourth quarter, until the Indians' Drake Robinson scored at the 9:39 mark in the final quarter.
It's a 3rd and 5 situation from the 5-yard line. 3 receivers to the right. Schaff smacks his hands, rolls left, inside pitch into the end zone. And the touchdown is made by Drake Robinson. Robinson scores. 9:39 to play in the fourth quarter. That makes it 13-6.
And the extra point makes it 14-6. So St. Pius, they're unable to succeed on their next possession. They give it back to St. Vincent. Christian Schaff sounds like he had a great game. He sealed the win with this run, less than 3 minutes to go in the ball game.
From the 15 shots, he's going to keep it himself. He goes to the left side. He gets a block, and he gets into the end zone. He made a great leap getting across the plane with 2:49 left to play in the ball game.
And again, it's a St. Pius defense that doesn't give up a lot of points. They only give up 21, which, you can live with that in a high school football game. But the offense couldn't really do much against that St. Vincent defense, I guess.
Yeah. They just really tightened up, and then things just kind of fizzled. And we shouldn't forget that St. Pius has a substitute quarterback right now, a sophomore, in Irvin. So, and he did pretty well. He really did. He did pretty well. But, you got to look at that towards the end of the ball game too.
Yeah. So, Tim Schumer, head coach of the Indians, he said that he knew it was going to be a tough battle.
They knew it was a good battle. I mean, it was going to be a 4-quarter ball game. They weren't going to, it wasn't like one team was going to be able to run away with it. So, just keep battling. I felt like we did a good job moving the ball offensively. We just had too many mistakes once we got close. But defensively, we held our own. We, stood up to their ground and pound attack and came up with some key stops, especially late in the first half, to keep them out of the end zone. And then I, challenged them at halftime to come out and be the more physical team.
And then Lancer head coach Dan Oliver, he said his team just couldn't get past the Indians' tough defense.
They were tough on us. They had a good defense, and we didn't always execute the way we wanted to. But part of that is they played good defense.
St. Vincent, they improved to 6-1. The Lancers lose their second game of the season. They're 5-2. And the win, mentioned it, it gives the Indians sole possession at the top of the I-55 conference. There's still a couple of games to go. They still have 2 more conference games to play, I believe, each of those teams. So there could be some shifting around. But, yeah, I mean, St. Vincent, they're in prime position to win the I-55 for the first time. And I don't know how long. I mean, Valley won it all those years. St. Pius wins it last year when Valley is out of the conference. So it was a big position for St. Vincent, and it sounded like they look pretty good out there.
Yeah, they do. They're a good football team.
Yeah, number 9 team in the state in Class 1. So this Friday night, the Lancers will be at Bayless, and the Indians will go to Grandview. We have one more game to break down from last Friday, the J98 game of the week, and we'll do so on the other side of this break. You're listening to the Kohl's Tractor and Equipment Football Roundtable on 98.5 FM.
Hi, this is Brad Smith.
We're running through on the Kohl's Tractor and Equipment Football Roundtable on J98, mymoinfo.com, streaming on Twitter and YouTube. Griffin Weinberg, Garrett Davenport, Chad Speaker, Hal Neisler with you. Breaking down the J98 game of the week, the Old Settlement Showdown. This one belonged to Valley Catholic. The Warriors beat the Dragons 63-7 last Friday. St. John got the opening kickoff. They're forced to punt after junior Isaac Bosler had a really nice pass breakup on a third down pass attempt. So Valley gets the ball back, and on the third play of the Warriors' first drive, Bosler was rewarded with his first receiving touchdown of the season. Now it's another empty backfield for Valley Catholic. Fowler takes a low shotgun snap at the belt, rolls left, now stops, finds a man open down the field, counted to 5, and into the end zone for a touchdown is Isaac Bosler. 9 minutes and 45 seconds to go in the first quarter, and Fowler goes 35 yards to find Bosler to put the Warriors up 6-0. St. John, they struggled all night to find a rhythm on offense. Valley did not. 3:42 to go in the first. Warriors lead 13-0. They'll stay in that same formation. Okenfuss, the running back, on the right hip. Giesler on the left hip. It'll be Okenfuss taking the carry. He was nearly tackled, broke out of it, somehow got out of another, crosses the 5. Okenfuss is in for a touchdown. What a run there by Timmy Okenfuss. And Valley leads 19-0. 3:35 to go in the first. Landon Thompson met Okenfuss in the backfield, and Coach, come on, Griff.
He just pinballed right off of him.
Well, the Dragons got something. Aiden Boyer connected with Devin Fly for a 16-yard touchdown to make it 34-7. But the Warriors, they just kept rolling on. They ran for 344 yards and 6 touchdowns on the night. Giesler went for 105. Bryce Giesler, that is, 105 yards and 2 touchdowns. Chase Fowler threw the ball well, completed 10 of 14 passes for 195 yards and 3 touchdowns. 2 of those passing touchdowns went to Sam Drury. Giesler was able to pickup, about 5 yards on that carry. And now Fowler will drop back, and he's going to look to throw this ball. A laser to the near side into the end zone, and it's caught by Curry for a touchdown. Curry just beat his man, Devin Fly, caught the open ball, and now Valley Catholic goes on top 47-7. 2 minutes to go in the first half. It was a suffocating night for the Valley defense, too, forcing 3 interceptions, 11 tackles for loss. Coach Judd Nagger said the early defensive stop helped propel the Warriors to a dominating win.
Well, just to be able to get a stop on their first drive and, make a good play on their first play of the game just kind of set the tone. And, Chase made a great throw on that first score. That when we drew up that play, that really wasn't the guy we were trying to go to.
SoundCloud.
But, they kind of got caught in their banjo situation and kind of let Isaac have a nice play there. And, Isaac's been a solid guy for us, certainly on defense. And he's kind of the odd man out on offense just because we got some guys doing a really good job.
Griff, you've talked about the fact that a team's going to have to put together all 48 minutes to beat Valley, and that's one way you have to play a complete game. But there's another way you also have to play a complete game against Valley, because we know about Chase Fowler and the fact that he can direct an offense. We know about Bryce Giesler, a guy that turned in the 1,000-yard season last year, the first one in a few years, and has come back strong again. The coaches that you talk about when you talk about Valley talk about their offensive and defensive lines. But in this game, it seemed like every time St. John started to push the ball down the field, it was the defensive backs, because 3 straight possessions, they picked it off. So, yeah, you got to play a complete game for 48 minutes, but you also have to play a complete game because every position group for Valley is as strong as the next, it appears.
Yeah, and I think, for the case of this game, just frankly, it was just one team was just better than the other.
Yeah.
I think at this point in the season, especially Valley, they're just better than St. John. The pass rush, it was hard for the St. Genevieve blockers to keep the defensive line for Valley Catholic out of the backfield. So Boyer, what he would do most of the time, just like take a 3-step drop and throw the ball downfield, try to go for a big completion. They got a few of them. There were like 3 passes. I think the Dragons completed for like 40-plus yards. So, they just wanted to do that, put themselves into Valley territory and try to get up a score. But it was just, Valley Catholic being Valley Catholic. It's kind of as simple as that. They're the number 3 team in the state in Class 3 for a reason. They're 7-0 for a reason. And they are now the MAFC White Divisional champs for a reason. First year in the conference, in the division, I should say. And they go 4-0 in league play to stay at 7-0 and win the MAFC White Division. Valley's going to have a Saturday game against Vianney this Saturday. They'll play that one at home. They're going to be honoring the state champions from the 88 through 92 seasons, 5 consecutive state championships. So they'll be honoring them then. St. John drops to 5-2. They'll be at Jefferson this Friday. That is our J98 game of the week. We'll talk a little bit about that later on in the show, but we'll break down the other games that happened in the area from last Friday after this little break from the Kohl's Tractor and Equipment Football Roundtable on 98.5 FM. Garrett loves it.
Lenny Kravitz, baby.
Yeah, I know. Lenny's the man. American woman. There we go. Coles Tractor and Equipment Football Roundtable. We're rolling here. Get the little hair flip on there. You probably saw that on Twitter and YouTube on 98.5. We're also streaming at mymoinfo.com. Griffin Weinberg, Garrett Davenport, Chad Speaker, Hal Neisler. We'll break down some of the other games from last Friday in the area from the Applebee's in Farmington. Hillsboro, they defeat the Soto 79-0. Here are the comments from Hawks head coach Bill Saharsky.
Our defense played outstanding in the first quarter. I think we had 2 or 3 big fixes. We got another one right to start the second quarter, and I think it was 49-0 at that point. We were able to get a lot of our JV and our young kids in. Our freshmen were able to come in and play most of the fourth quarter on offense. And, just a good team win. I said played really well defensively. Offensively played well, but we were given a short field all night, and our kids were able to convert and put points to the board.
Yeah, I think it's just another case of, two programs that are in different spots right now. Yeah, Hillsboro, a top team in Class 4.
Little spoiler alert. I'm just going to say, and we'll talk about it later, Hal's going to have a slammer of a game this week. So we'll tease there.
Oh, yeah, we didn't bring it up, but that is going to be an exciting game. Yeah, 2 of the top teams, I think, in the state will be facing off this Friday. Hillsboro is 7-0. DeSoto drops to 1-6. Jefferson beats Grandview 41-12. Blue Jays coach Matt Atley says his team played well on both sides of the ball.
Offensively, we started clicking a little bit. Outside of about one turnover we had there on the first drive, we kind of started to figure out what we needed to do and really took advantage of it. Defensively, we're flying around. And, we're playing inspired, I guess I should say.
So it's a 3-game win streak for Jefferson, and I did some adding up, some math. So teams that we have had join the roundtable this season are currently 4-2 in that week's football game. So the first 2 teams that came on losses, Potosi and Farmington, but now 4 straight wins for teams that joined the roundtable.
Well, we're like Jefferson.
Yeah.
We've hit our stride now, right?
Exactly. We are rolling at this point, baby.
Jefferson's defense has been good all year.
Yeah.
Now they're finding their identity offensively. Ussery had over 200 a few games ago. Another good game for him, but they're spreading it around now. And Jefferson, they continue to play that stingy defense while finding their footing on the offensive end.
Yeah, it's a dangerous combination. Cole Williams, I mean, he had 1 pass and went for 10 yards and a touchdown. Like he's doing limited stuff, but it's working when they need it to. Sort of like Hillsboro in a different way. Their quarterback, Preston Brown, doesn't throw it a lot, but the pass works when they need it to.
It's like Kelsey.
Yeah.
Catching 4 touchdown passes and only goes 10 yards down the field.
Yeah, that's all you need.
That's all you need.
Yep, you take what you get. So Jefferson, they improved to 4-3. Grandview drops to 2-5. Herculaneum beats Bayless 44-6. Blaine Boss, head coach of the Black Cats, says his team got off to a quick start.
We got the ball first, and I believe we went down and scored right away. So anytime you do that, that's what you want to do. And it's finally kind of nice to actually have a decent offensive series to start the game. And I think our kids came out focused. It was senior night, and our seniors really came to play tonight. They had a heck of a ball game for us, and as did our juniors too. So it was a very good night for us overall.
Yeah, impressive stuff from everyone on Herky. Jackson Deering, 10 of 12 passing, 232 and 4 touchdowns. Barr touched the ball. Lucas Barr touched it 7 times, 210 yards. Hunter Myers for Herky had 3 interceptions on the defensive side of things as the Black Cats improved to 5-2. How about Fox? It's been a little bit of a downstretch for the Warriors, but they come back with a 49-8 win over Hazelwood West. Brent Tinker, he says that after a slow start to the season, his team is doing better.
I have pretty high expectations for this group of kids going into the year. We haven't quite gotten to where I want to be yet. I don't think we've lived up to our potential yet. But tonight we had a good game and kind of minimized our mistakes and got some things going. And winning is hard when everybody else is trying to win too. So we're going to celebrate the victory. We're going to hopefully build on it and move into next week.
Fox kind of needed that, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I know that Coach Tinker's been a little disappointed, and he has said a couple of times, we just haven't found what we believe is our identity. He said our identity is, a smash mouth option team that's going to come right after you. And he said we just haven't found it. I think they needed a feel good win, some success, and then hopefully for them build from there.
Yeah, it was a good win for Fox for sure. Kevin Wynn, 3 rushing touchdowns. Jaden Thompson scored twice. The defense had 4 takeaways as Fox improved to 2-5. How about this Seckman-Pattonville game? I mean, this was arguably the game of the night, among the whole area. So Seckman wins 50-48 in overtime. Head coach Nick Pear says it went back and forth all night long.
We go 14 at half. And, we came on in the second half, and we kind of got to a shootout. It's not really what we wanted to do. It's not how we had it planned. And we just stepped up on all kinds of ball when we needed to.
Griff, I don't know if you know this, but looking over here, the third and fourth quarter, was there a punt in between any of these scores? Because it really went Patmille, Seckman, Patmille, second. I mean, they just kept scoring and scoring and scoring.
It was literally back and forth. It was an offensive explosion. It's one of those games. Coach just said it. He didn't want to get involved in it, but his team is well equipped to play one of those high-scoring matchups. I mean, Seckman was up 14-0 at the start of the second quarter. Then Pattonville scores twice to go, 14-14 and a half. They score out of the third quarter. And then apparently they went for two. So that fails. And then down the line, they try to go for they try to kick a PAT, Pattonville. They miss it. Then Seckman scores in the fourth quarter. They had a failed PAT. So then they got to go for two and whatever. Eventually, Cole Rubel has an 8-yard touchdown run to tie it up with 4 minutes to go in the game. And then in overtime, Rubel runs it in for the score. Pattonville, they get a touchdown in overtime to make it 50-48. The 2-point conversion pass went over the receiver's head, so Seckman wins. Rubel, again, another somewhat ho-hum game, 269 on the ground, 44 carries for Rubel, 5 touchdowns, 105 yards passing, 2 touchdowns, 9 sacks for Seckman's defense. Shout out to Noah Isaiah, who had 4 of them. And then I know the Pattonville QB's numbers. I mean, this kid went off. Byron McNair, 365 yards on 5 touchdowns, no picks. So
Steve McNair numbers.
Seriously, yeah. Heck of a game they had up there.
So Byron McNair, you see him on here throwing the passes. You also see him on the receiving end of touchdown passes.
Yeah.
So what was up with that?
He could do a little bit of everything. He's like the Cole Rubel of the Pattonville team. So all around, just great performances from that game. But Seckman comes out on top, 6-1 are the Jaguars' record. How about the MAFC White Division? Central beats Fredericktown 42-0. Corey Schweiss, he said that not only did his team win the game, but Job Bryant broke a career record.
He broke his uncle Aaron Bates, played for us back in 2007, I think, with his senior season. Aaron held that record for, I guess, about 15 years. Aaron's sister, Shelly, is Job's mom. So Job was able to break that record tonight, all-time receiving yards at the high school with a little over 2,100. I think Aaron's was at 2,102. Job passed out on the, I guess it was his first reception of the night when he had a pretty long touchdown reception.
Kind of reminds me, in a way, of what Deshaun Welsh, was doing at the running back spot, because he had the career record for rushing yards before the end of his junior year. So now Joe Bryant has the career receiving record before the end of his junior year. So that thing's going to be just smashed by the time he's done.
He's a special talent, too. I think he's getting some good, some D1 looks right now, on top of him just being a great basketball player. So all-around fun night for the Rebels as they improve to 6-1, and Fredericktown is 2-5. Chad, you mentioned it on End Zone, but this was one of your big winners, I think, of the night. Potosi beat St. Charles West 53-31. Dylan Wyrick, head coach of the Trojans, said he made a few changes this week.
Able to get a run game going, which helped us out a ton. We kind of struggled in that area. We had to move Zane West, who played receiver for us, and JT Cross, who had played running back for us at the beginning of the season. We had to move them up to the offensive line to play guard, and they're getting better every week doing that. We were able to get some push and, get the run game going a little bit, which obviously opened up the pass game for us.
But a savvy move, right, by Dylan Wyrick. You're 2-4. What do you? Well, let's take a couple of running backs. Yeah. We'll put them on the line. Maybe that'll work. And it did. Yeah. That's I want to say unconventional, because at the high school level, you can kind of do that. You have some like bodies, but it's certainly creative. And not only did the switch work, but you have to teach those guys, coach them up, because physically they're fine.
Yeah.
But what do I do at my new position here? So what a great move by Coach Wyrick.
And I know that they at least started at the guard position against St. Genevieve in the game before, too. So it's been at least 2 games they've been there. But that's just a product of, hey, these kids are skilled. They can do anything, and they're willing to do it, too. And they're trying to help out their team. And, it ends up paying off for them. West, he had a pick 6 in the fourth quarter, too, as the middle linebacker for the team. So his number changed this year, along with JT Cross after the change to the offensive line. But they're helping out their teams however they can as Potosi improves to 3-5. 4. Festus, they put up a win over Pacific, 55-24. Festus jumps to 3-4. New Madrid County Central beats Perryville 65-7. Perryville is now 2-5 on the season. And then the last game, we'll be able to talk about it soon here. North County beats Windsor 55-12. We'll have that conversation with Brian Jones and a couple players coming up next. But let's get into some of the big winners from the past week. Chad, we already mentioned it. I know Potosi was your big winner.
Yeah, I mean, I said that on End Zone on Friday night, and I'm going to stick with it. We talked about, the kind of the coaching moves by Coach Wyrick there. What we didn't allude to is that St. Charles West was 5-1 coming in. They were getting votes in Class 3, so a highly regarded team that had a really nice record and I think a great win for Potosi. So they were my big winner.
Yeah, Garrett, how about you?
I think my big winner right now is Festus. I mean, they put up 55 points. It's an offense that we know is capable and finally was able to really show exactly what they can do, putting up 55 points and put themselves in a position to go and get that 3 seed in the district. Now, I wouldn't want to play the 1 or 2 seed in Class 4 District 1, but Festus, puts himself in the position to finish, in that top 3 position. So it's going to be, again, a really fun game next week between Farmington and Festus.
Yeah, Hal, was there any team that kind of caught your eye from this past Friday as a big winner?
Well, I liked Herculaneum.
Yeah.
I mean, they put 44 points on the board. I know it was against Bayless, but Herculaneum put 44 points on the board. I think they had a good night, just executing what they need to do.
Yeah, Herky a little bit like Jefferson Howell, where that defense has been there all year.
Yeah.
And now they find a team where, they get the offense right and maybe they can carry that forward. So a good pick there.
Yeah, I like a couple of the teams up north near St. Louis. I mean, Seckman, what a heck of a win that you get over Pattonville. And then for Fox, just again, to go on that long losing streak, the bigger expectations for this season. It's just a little bit of a relief to get that win, 49-8 over Hazelwood West, and the Warriors will try to chug along. We're going to talk about the North County Windsor game with head coach Brian Jones, a couple players joining us on the Kohl's Tractor and Equipment Football Roundtable on the other side of this break. Don't go anywhere, folks. We're on 98.5 FM. Welcome back into the Kohl's Tractor and Equipment Football Roundtable. We're on J98, mymoinfo.com, streaming on Twitter and on YouTube too. Griffin Weinberg and Garrett Davenport. Now we're joined by some of the North County Raiders here, head coach Brian Jones, Job Smith, Mason Lay. Fellas, thanks so much for coming on here. Really appreciate it. It's always fun watching you guys whenever we get the opportunity to, and it's a heck of a season that you're having so far. and I'm glad that we get to talk about it. So I want to start talking about the Windsor game from this past Friday. You guys go up 55-12, and some big numbers. You have a nice game. Job, yourself, a good rushing game too. Zane Huff, though, is one guy I did kind of want to mention a little bit, and I didn't want to forget about it because I know that he's been running the ball particularly well. So just kind of getting right into it, Job. I know that you have good games all the time, but when you see somebody else who's able to run the ball pretty well too, is that kind of a nice experience? You get to cheer somebody else on.
Yeah, I think it's pretty cool, especially since it's Zane. We're still working to get him out of the shell, and it's kind of working. So it's awesome to see him exceed, and obviously others on the team as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I know things obviously start in the trenches for this team. So, Mason, you're playing on both sides of it. Offensively, what do you think is kind of the thing that makes this offensive line tick and the thing that, really opens up holes for guys like Job and Zane?
Honestly, I think we compete a lot with each other. We really like to get after each other in practice, and I think we work real hard all season long. And I definitely think we push each other to be the best we can be.
Yeah. So, Coach, I know you brought these two players along, and I've gotten the chance, to talk to them a little bit throughout my time here. But, Job has done, his stuff there. I know Mason's, a leader for the team too. Can you just tell me a little bit about what these two guys kind of bring to your team, whether it be on the field or maybe off the field leadership?
I think they both mentioned it just a little bit, and just you asked Job about Zane. Zane didn't play last year, and when he made a decision to come back out, it was something that we were really, the whole team was happy about, and they've really rallied around him, getting him caught back up and getting him up to speed after missing his sophomore year, and then so I really appreciate that, and like Mason said, those guys. One of the things that Coach Sheets told me their freshman year was those guys get after each other, and when they're in practice, none of them ever has their head turned to the other one because they're always afraid they're going to get it knocked off, and they bring that energy to practice every day, and those guys have played as a unit for several years now, so they're real comfortable with each other, and it reminds me of a group that Coach Freeman had at Hillsboro. One of his really good years there, where they brought back their entire offensive line, and when you can bring back a piece of your offense like that, good things are going to happen, especially if you're in a run offense or a run oriented offense.
Yeah, and Hillsboro, just hate to bring it up, it's the only loss that you guys have this season, but you guys were right there in the fourth quarter. There's been a lot of these close games that you guys have been in throughout the season, whether you're leading, another team comes back, but then you manage to find a way to win, or like even against Festus where you're down and you guys find a way to come back and win. Coach, what is it really, I guess, about this team that sort of has that resilience factor that they're not really phased when things are really close?
They don't get rattled and they don't quit. And, that's pretty much it in a nutshell. We had some games, early on, our first two games, we jumped out to pretty big leads. Second game out at St. Clair, we were about a yard from going up 28-0. Midway through the third quarter, we found ourselves down 25-21, was scrambling, then got the ball back and was able to punch it in and go up, with 36-32 with less than a minute to play in the game, and then close out that game. And then, Festus game and the battle game, we dug ourselves a hole early on. And, when they come to the sidelines, you could just see that they weren't really bothered by it. It was just, okay, it's time to go to work. And that's what we did. And we battled back and ended up coming out on top. So they don't get rattled. They don't get bothered by the score too much. And they just take a breath and play football.
Yeah, and I mean, you guys are football players. So the game after St. Clair, DeSoto, Job, that's the game where you break the school's all-time rushing record. Do you remember, the moment? Is that sort of a moment that you were anticipating, or did it kind of catch you by surprise a little bit? Do you ever look at those numbers?
I mean, I definitely knew it was coming up, and it's for sure gonna be a moment that I'm gonna cherish. But it's pretty awesome.
Yeah,
it's pretty awesome.
Just a moment in the past. Well, I like that. It feels like you're always kind of looking forward, to what's happening next. So for the people that maybe have listened to a game of yours, or they can see whatever numbers you're putting up, can you just describe like maybe the kind of ball runner that you are in your game a little bit on the offensive side of things? If you had to break yourself down, I don't know if you do that much.
Really, I just try to just find a hole. That's whether that's trying to be patient. But basically, when I get the ball, I'm trying to find the biggest hole possible, whether that's, I don't know. That's basically it. So that's whether that's if I need to be patient, find the hole, or if I need to hit the hole hard. That's basically it. Is just find the hole and run through it.
Yeah, Mason. I mean, with you being one of the guys on the offensive line blocking for these guys, when you hear that the play is wherever you're running it to, left or right, is there like something in the back of your head like there's a chance where we might get a touchdown here?
Oh yeah, definitely. I think I have a couple favorite plays as all other guys do, and yeah, we like to hear it called.
Yeah, I'm sure. And you don't got to break down any of the plays. You don't got to give me any of those secrets. But
one thing about these guys is, Job's got great vision. I think everybody understands that, and he's also got power and explosiveness. But the thing that often gets overlooked about those front five is they really get off the ball well, and they really stay on their blocks. And that's something that Coach Sheets, who is the offensive line coach they work with every day, that's something that he really these guys get tired of hearing finish and get off the blocks or get off the ball, but because he says it probably 100 times in practice. But that's something that they really do well. And they enjoy blocking.
Yeah.
And that's fun. They like what we're able to do because of their athleticism as a unit. And, in turn, that opens up a lot of stuff for Job and Zane and as well as our other runners and our other skilled guys.
Yeah, and I remember, you kind of telling me that last year, or maybe even when I talked to Nolan Reed, but he was like, I kind of like blocking for Job, and sometimes Job likes really blocking for me. Does it matter if you carry the ball a certain amount of times in a game, or you just, you got to help the team win?
Not at all. I mean, whatever works, whatever helps the team. I mean, it's what it's all about.
Yeah, exactly. That is what it's all about. And I kind of like how you bring up the coming off the ball really quickly, Coach, because I spent a lot of time. I've watched a lot of Valley Catholic games this season. And I know over there it's tradition, it's history, it's, Valley Catholic football means something. But the more I've, kind of learned about North County football and Bonne Terre is that it's just as much tradition as anywhere else. And I feel like that there is something to being a North County Raider football player. Mason, is that something that, if you had to describe being a North County Raider, I guess what's the best way that you could describe that?
I mean, yeah, I don't really know.
It's a loaded question.
Yeah,
little bit.
Yeah. It definitely means something to be a Raider. Putting on that blue and gold, it means something. We all know that, and we all play for the guys below us, the guys coming up. We want them to have the best chance too. So we play as hard as we can, and whatever happens, happens.
Yeah, and Coach, I mean, I guess it's for you. I mean, you've been coaching, in North County for a long time, besides a little stint that you were away from the team, but you come back, and now it's your 6 years the head coach. And I just remember, last year, how many people would show up to those games, especially through that state run. What does it mean to you, knowing that you have a full support of the community that's behind this football team?
It's huge. I'm a Bonne Terre kid, or actually a Deloge kid, technically. Grew up, spent most of my childhood in Deloge, but still a North County kid. It's the only place I ever went to school. It's the only place I've ever taught. It's the only place I've ever coached. I grew up watching my uncles play with some guys that have gone on to, they're in their 50s now. But, when I was 6, 7, 8 years old watching them, I thought they were, I thought they were superheroes. And then just coming through the program and, kind of when I got to high school, or when my class got to high school, the program was in a little bit of a lull, and we worked hard to kind of get it back up to a respectable level. And then to see as a fan the success they had through the mid 90s, and then being able to get involved, as a coach in 2000, working for Coach Haug and as a lower level coach, and then just working my way up through the ranks, and with the various head coaches that I worked for prior to becoming the head coach. It was always it was always important to me just to try to put a good product out for the community to be proud of. And one thing that really always kept me at North County was that I couldn't bear the thought of coaching somewhere else and having to look across the field with all that blue and gold.
Yeah.
It's just something I never, just something I never wanted to do as a coach.
Yeah, and now you're here. So it's Brian Jones, Job Smith, Mason Lay here on the Kohl's Tractor and Equipment Football Roundtable. Let's talk a little bit about the game on Thursday. You're going to be playing Potosi. again, you don't need to divulge all the secrets, but a Thursday game. Have you guys played in a Thursday night game before?
Yeah.
We did. We played. We actually played Sullivan last year on a Thursday night, and then
St. Clair was
the
Thursday.
St. Clair game this year was a Thursday. So it's not totally out of the routine, but it's definitely not something that we do every week.
Yeah. So how does it, I guess, affect preparation? Leading into a Thursday night game.
You lose, you kind of lose a day of prep time. The big thing is you lose a day of recovery, and that's what I think gets often overlooked. I think by week 8 of the season, teams are who they are. You might add a wrinkle or two, but pretty much teams are who they are. But also week 8 of the season, the little injuries start adding up, and you get a day less rest, and that makes things tough to go out and play, on a shortened week when you don't have that much, you don't have that much recovery time to begin with. So that's probably the big thing is you lose a day of rest and recovery.
Yeah, it's not the easiest thing. And, every team, they have to deal with it. I remember talked about it the game last year against Potosi at Potosi. 27-7 was the final. You guys win. But I remember, Joe, that you didn't have a lot of rushing yards, I think, in that game. It was like 20 for like less than 100, which, it seemed out of the realm just for your own numbers. But receiving, you had like over 100 receiving yards, I think, in that game too. Was that maybe not, going back to that, but, how comfortable are you changing up from being, hey, I can run the ball well, but now I'm going to try to be the best receiver I can be for this team?
I'm totally okay with lining up wherever Coach Jones, wants me to be, whether that's running the ball 10, 20 times or catching the ball 5 to 10 times. It's just whatever can help the team the most is really the most important thing.
Yeah, in the passing game, I know it's developed this year too, with Jack, stepping into the spot after Nolan graduated. And the passing game is definitely, you see the numbers kind of take a big step. Yes, Mason, do you like kind of run blocking or pass blocking anymore?
I like to run block and pass block both, but it's just whatever we need to do, we'll get it done.
You really like the contact, the hit.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah. Definitely.
Yeah. I can tell. I'm impressed with Jack's numbers though this year because even in that game against Hillsborough that I saw, the guy just looked really comfortable. I was adding up his numbers from the last 3 games: 390 yards, completing 55% of his passes, 6 touchdowns. Coach, what does his ability to throw the ball? How does that sort of change the offense? And because people now have to respect your guys' passing game a little more.
And it makes teams have to defend us in the box as well as in the perimeter. And Jack is somebody that I kind of got beat up on I made a comment after the Hillsborough game that he was still growing up, and I kind of got beat up about that comment, but I think people misunderstood what I meant. What I meant was he's still learning, and he's still in the process of getting better. And like you mentioned, his last 3 games have been probably the best 3 games he's had all year, just in terms of efficiency and yardage wise. And if you saw him, I told you earlier, we scored twice in less than a minute before halftime the other night in our game against Windsor. And he brought us down the field in our 2-minute offense to score. And then we got Zane actually intercepted the ball, and we got 2 more shots at the end zone because of a pass interference penalty. But the final throw he made of the first half was a 33 or 34 yarder to Job. And, he kind of had to move around in the pocket a little bit and have a sense of his protection. And he also stepped up and delivered a great ball that only Job could catch, or that couldn't be picked off. And, when we saw that on film, you look back to where he is week 7 as opposed to where he was like maybe week 1 or 2. You could definitely tell that he's a lot more comfortable. And the big thing is he's a lot more confident.
Yeah. Joe, did you have to work with Jack like a lot in the summer? Did you guys throw, is he throwing routes to you or anything?
During the summer, we got a lot of work in, not just with me or, Zane. There's a lot of receivers that got some work in with him. So, all of that definitely built our chemistry, which definitely helps, throughout the season.
Yeah. Tell me maybe a younger kid on the team that's kind of, impressed a little bit. Maybe it's not somebody who's playing a lot at the varsity level. Maybe it's a few reps here and there. But is there anybody who's younger on the team and you're like, that kid might be, something in a year or two?
Not technically younger, but I think Bryce Varner will definitely, he's a stud. I think he's gonna he's waiting for his opportunity. I know he works hard to practice, and I think he's just waiting for the opportunity. So
Yeah.
that's awesome.
Yeah, Mason, is there anyone who's you're kind of like, yeah, I like this kid maybe on the offensive or defensive line?
We have a young guy. We have a couple of young guys on the D line right now. I really like to watch Xavier Sherfus and Tyler Pitkin. I think they're doing real good. I'm excited to see what they can do.
Yeah. I mean, it seems like it's a team where is always reloading. There's always some guys that are stepping up here. And I know that Potosi, just them specifically, they're a team that is primarily throwing the ball a lot too. You guys have seen a lot of offenses that have thrown the ball against you, though. So, and a guy with Blake Coleman, who I think he's a 3-year starter now for Potosi too. Does it change the way? Are you guys like sort of in the game planning part of practice where we need to focus on pass defense and trying to keep that passing, the other teams, passing offense off the field as much as we can? Or are you guys just sort of running your own defense, coach, I guess, and just kind of trusting the way that you do things?
Blake's definitely a guy that can hurt you, and they are really good in their quick game, and that's something that's a concern of ours. I don't think it's any secret that he's not he can hurt you with his feet. He's a decent downhill runner, and that's something he's gotten way better at as this season's progressed. But everybody knows that when you play Potosi this year, that you have to defend him, and you have to defend Gavin, you have to defend Luke and their other receivers, and some of the things they do, especially in their quick game, and the way Blake is able to get rid of the ball fast, can kind of put you in a bind. So. We've talked a lot about just how good he is in their quick game and some things that we have to do better to try to limit their success there. Teams have thrown the ball on us. It was a shootout against Battle. I don't know that we went into that. We definitely went into that game underestimating their athleticism, and I think that was, that was from the top, from the coaching staff all the way through their players, and we did have quite a bit of film on them. Just it didn't show up on film like it showed up on the field, and then Festus got after us the first half of that game, and then we were able to make some adjustments and kind of shut that down the second half. In fact, these guys rose to the occasion and didn't give up. We didn't give up any second half points that night, and then was able to get our offense going and come out on top of that game as well. But the passing game is something that the teams have had success against us with this year. And that's something that that's definitely one of Potosi's strengths. So it's something we got to be ready for sure.
Yeah, and I guess just a couple more things. The fact that the conference, it's wrapped up. Hillsborough, they won the conference. The two games on your schedule, Potosi and Sullivan, it's not conference opponents. They're not in your district either. Do you approach it in a different way as a sort of, that the only thing is at stake is maybe just trying to improve our team and figure out those little things?
No, we take every game serious. I mean, there's never a game that we're going to say, well, we don't want to do this or we don't want to do that, or it's okay if we don't have a good showing, because we definitely want to. Hillsborough definitely wrapped up the conference, and they've pretty much cemented themselves as the one seed. But we definitely want to be the two. And I've not sat down and done the math on that, but Farmington and Festus is right below us. I think I think our district gets a little more clear after Friday's game, but between the Tigers and the Knights, and I think that'll give everybody a pretty good idea of where everyone's sitting going into week 9 and the final regular season game. But we want to finish strong and be sitting at the 2 and get to host a couple of games should we be lucky to get through our week 10 opponent. And who knows what happens. Maybe we go to Hillsborough again for a district championship or maybe not. But it's nice to play. The more games you can play at home, the nicer the season is.
Yeah, absolutely. In this home game, it's going to be senior night for you guys. You don't feel like the ones that may, look back on everything just yet, since there's still a football season that you're in the middle of and there's still high expectations for you. But Mason, I guess, as senior night approaches, do you think about the memories of being a football player? Or are you thinking we got to do something, this season still?
I mean, I have a lot of memories of over the years with all the guys from past teams. But I'm really looking forward to what this year still has to bring. I think we can still do something pretty good. I'm excited to see what this year.
Yeah, and Joe, I kind of asked you about it before, we started the interview here, but, do you kind of, do you like the fact that there's going to be, a lot of people there? Maybe there's going to be friends and family, the kids you're going to school with, to say, hey, we get to honor this kid, who's the all-time leading rusher at North County.
I mean, obviously that's pretty cool, but the more the fans, we got to put a good showing on for them. So hopefully they can be there, week 9, week 10 and beyond. So that's the best thing about it.
Yeah, we're looking forward to it. Like I said, we'll have the game on J98 on Thursday, and hopefully everyone listening right now will tune into that game. Guys, thanks so much for coming on. Really appreciate it. This is awesome to get a chance to talk to you folks. So thank you, and good luck on Thursday, all right?
Yep.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us down, Griffin. We really appreciate it. It's been a while since I've been here, but I really enjoyed the dinner and really enjoyed the show.
Yes, thank you so much. Glad that we could talk with you. That's head coach Brian Jones, Mason Lay, Job Smith joining us on the Kohl's Tractor and Equipment Football Roundtable. We'll preview this Friday's games after this quick break on 98.5 FM. Welcome back into the Kohl's Tractor and Equipment Football Roundtable from the Applebee's in Farmington. Griffin Weinberg, Garrett Davenport, Chad Speaker, Hal Neisler back on here, the full squad. After a good conversation with the North County Raiders. Again, thank you to Brian Jones, the head coach of the Raiders squad, Job Smith, North County's all-time leading rusher, and Mason Lay, just a powerhouse who is on the offensive line and on the defensive line for that Raider team. We're going to be broadcasting their game against Potosi this Thursday on 98.5 FM. Let's talk a little Mizzou football. Another tough loss for the Tigers this past Saturday. They lost to Florida 24-17 on the road. Mizzou falls to 2-4 on the season. They are 0-3 in SEC play. They got a bye week this Saturday before they start play on October 22nd against Vanderbilt. That is a homecoming game. This is it's kind of a bad news for Mizzou because they need to win 4 more games at least to be bowl eligible. Unless for some reason the season plays out and 5 and 7 teams will be able to get to a bowl game. But I mean, you look at the rest of the schedule for Mizzou, it's not looking pretty. They have to win 4 of the last 6 games. So they're going to be at home against Vandy, homecoming game. Maybe chalk that up as a win. At South Carolina, not doing that. Versus Kentucky, not. I don't think so. At Tennessee, I don't think so. Versus New Mexico State, sure. Don't know much about them. Versus Arkansas at home, maybe they steal one at home against Arkansas. Not really a great spot for Eli Drinkwitz and the boys, Garrett.
Nope, not at all. And you know what? I just don't see a world where Missouri does make it to be bowl eligible, but they have improved steadily. And I think we saw that against Georgia, especially a team against Florida that's kind of fallen off throughout the track of the season, still has a good roster to them. Losing that game 24-17 in the Swamp, I think it's actually really impressive. And everybody knows I'm a Eli Drinkwitz, a little bit of a hater. You know, I'm not going to lie to you, but he's actually making some strides as a head coach for Mizzou. So, I mean, you know, maybe not this year, but next year you get a more solid roster. Really need to see how much Luther Burden comes into a factor as in the next few seasons as well. He needs to get the football.
If he's still there.
Yeah, if he's still there. That's something we kind of talked about is you need to get Luther Burden the football.
Yeah, that's got to be a thing, that's for sure. So we'll see. Maybe Mizzou can pull something out. But, again, the Tigers off this Saturday. They're back at home on the 22nd. Let's take a brief look at this Friday's football schedule, and then we'll break down some of our broadcast games. So Potosi, North County, we talked about it enough on J98 Thursday night, senior night for the Raiders. Myself and Garrett Davenport will be on the call for that one. Should be a fun one. Potosi, they're going to throw the ball. North County, they've experienced passing offenses before this season, and they can run the heck out of the ball too with Job Smith and Zane Huff. So we broke that game down enough. Let's move on to some of the other matchups on Friday as St. Vincent is hosting Grandview in an I-55 battle. If St. Vincent wins that game, I think they might need to win out the final 2 games, or they would need a St. Pius loss in order to clinch the I-55 title. St. Pius, they will be at Bayless, 5-2 St. Pius at 1-6 Bayless. Cape Central, 4-3, is going to be hosting DeSoto with a 1-6 record. Windsor will be hosting St. Clair. Those 2 teams are 3-4. Seckman, coming off of one of the most fun games ever, they're going to be hosting Oakville. Fox will be hosting Parkway South. Northwest, 0-7, hosting Webster Groves, 0-6. Crystal City will take their 6-1 record to Mexico to face the Missouri Military Academy with an 0-7 record. Central Rebels will be at Dexter, and then Fredericktown will be at St. Francis Borgia. And then we'll have a couple Saturday games too. Valley Catholic 7-0 hosting Vianney, an 0-7 Class 16, but Valley will be honoring the state championship teams from 1988 to 1992, and then Herculaneum will be at Perryville. Blaine Boss, former coach of Perryville, so it could be a little fun game there. There's, a couple intriguing games. I know that there's really one that sort of, caught our eye, that Northwest and Webster Groves game. I mean, something's got to give, right,
Somebody's
Chad?
getting a win, right?
Yeah.
It's the Ophir Bowl, and somebody's getting a win in that one. You know, the interesting part, Northwest is not even the last seed in their own district. We talk, they're not. We've
Really?
talked about them every week, and they're the 7th seed. There's actually somebody below them. So who knows? Maybe they get a win and go up to the number 6. We'll see. Well, a few weeks ago, it seemed like I thought we had this great group of games a few weeks ago because we had undefeateds against each other. Yeah. And then we had a collection of teams that play each other that had the same records too, and I thought that was a kind of a good separation type of week. It's kind of opposite this week. I see a lot of big favorites this week.
Yeah, and I think something that Brian Jones said, is that at this point in the season, you know who you are. For the most part, we know who all of these teams are, and their records are kind of showing in that portion too. So, yeah, something has to give between Northwest and Webster Groves. Garrett, was there any other game that was sort of you were kind of glancing at like, man, I wonder what's going to go on there?
So I'm actually kind of looking forward to Herculaneum at Perryville. I know the records are kind of swapped right there, but we've seen from Perryville, they're able to compete with some of the teams that they've been able to go up against. They have some size. Herculaneum, they have struggled offensively a little bit earlier in the season. They have started to make a lot of strides offensively. So I'm really just looking at that game. Former head coach comes back to Perryville. They're going to want to get the win, or the Pirates or the Black Cats. So I feel like records kind of go out of the window in that game. You want to kind of get revenge. It's kind of not necessarily bad. The fact, that Blaine Boss is now at Herculaneum, it's more of a friendly rivalry, I would say. But still, I feel like this is one of those games where it's 2-5, 5-2, but throw that all away. I feel like this one's just going to be a battle between the two teams.
St. Clair Windsor maybe could be interesting. St. Clair, fell to Potosi in week 1. They gave North County a huge battle. They were down 3 touchdowns, actually took the lead. North County had to beat them late. And then North County, took care of Windsor pretty good. So you can't really use transitive property, but Windsor's at home. I think that could be a good game.
Yeah. Windsor's doing some stuff on the up here. How about yourself, Hal? Was there another game that you're eyeing?
Well, besides the game I have coming up on Friday night.
Yeah, we're going to love that one.
The Oakville at Seckman game.
Yeah.
That might be an interesting contest there. Oakville 4-3, Seckman 6-1.
Yeah. Well, it was like Pattonville this past week. They were 4-2. Seckman 5-1. I don't know if anybody expected the game that they had, but ended up being a barn burner to overtime. So those are the non-broadcast games. We'll step aside for another break, and we'll break down our broadcast games for this Friday on the Kohl's Tractor and Equipment Football Roundtable on 98.5 FM. Final segment on the Coles Tractor and Equipment Football Roundtable from Applebee's in Farmington. We'll break down our broadcast games for this Friday. But first, a big thank you to Amy Cousins, as always, for allowing us to set up on this little corner booth and enjoy some great conversation about high school football and enjoy the great smells that Applebee's always has to offer. Some good specials, too.
They've been very distracting tonight.
They have.
The aromas, yes.
Yeah, I'm excited to finally look at that menu. I might try something else tonight. But we're looking forward to it, and we're looking forward to this Friday where we got some great games. Let's start with let's just start with a game that I think that we're all, it's in the back of our minds. On AM 1400K, Jeff Howe may have one of the best games in the state on Friday. Hillsboro, number 6 team in Class 4, facing Cardinal Ritter, the number 1 team in Class 3, dueling 7-0 records. This game is at Hillsboro. It's the Hawks homecoming game, Hal.
Yeah.
This is something that I think the state really might be eyeing because this is a powerhouse matchup.
I think there will be a lot of people there, not just for the homecoming, but to see the football players that are going to be there. A couple of good college prospects that we know of, at least from Cardinal Ritter. And Austin Romaine, he's already committed to K-State. But the other 2 wide receivers for Cardinal Ritter, this kid, Marvin Burks, they're at the station today. Ryan was just reading off the schools that have already shown an interest in him.
Yeah.
It's just like everybody except Alabama, and Alabama will probably be jumping in the mix here before it's all over anyway. But there's a lot of people interested in Marvin Burks. He's a wide receiver, strong safety, 6'2", 190, and
you got a kid going to Michigan or an offer from Michigan or something, right?
Yeah, he's already scored 82 points for the year. I think he leads the team in scoring, just behind Frederick Moore. He's the other wide receiver. So it ought to be a very electric night in Hillsboro.
You got an interesting kind of contrast to styles too, Hal, because you talk about the fact they have a few nationally ranked receivers for Cardinal Ritter. Now, Hillsboro can run, they can throw the ball, but they get most of their work done. Romaine, Patterson, QB running the football. Now, they can throw a little bit, but mostly they'll run it and play a little smash mouth and tough football. So Ritter wants to probably air it out. So that'll be an interesting contrast.
So keep it on the ground, control the clock, and keep Ritter off of the field as much as possible.
Yeah, and Hillsboro's built to do absolutely that. You're going to have to get past their tough defense, too. So Hal will have the call on AM 1400K, Jeff, on Friday night. Let's go to KREI, the Farmington Knights. They're hosting the Festus Tigers, dueling 3-4 records. Class 4 District 1 implications here. Possibly whoever wins could be put in a good position to have the 3 seed. It seems like that's the best spot that you can get if you're one of these 2 teams. But the other thing I saw is that, if you lose this game, your regular season is going to end with a losing record. Yeah. Neither team wants that, Chad. This seems like a spot that either team really could come out on top of.
Well, plus take a look at Week 10. What both these teams have. Festus is at Jackson.
Yeah.
So
Week 9,
with all due respect, Week 9. Yeah, that's right. With all due respect, good luck there. And Farmington is at Central, which is going to be really tough in week number 9. So, these 2 teams really, really want to win this ball game. Plus, it's essentially for the 3 seed in Class 4 District 1. These 2 teams, I really like this series. It feels like a conference game when they play each other because it's really a good battle, and they've been on each other's schedule quite frequently. Farmington's won the last 3. Festus won the 3 before that. And most recently, they've been relatively low scoring. Farmington is able to win last year 28-20, so both teams scoring a little bit less than they usually do. Farmington won it with a 24-yard field goal or a 29-yard field goal with zeros on the clock 10-7 2 years ago. Yeah. So Farmington has done a pretty nice job of slowing what usually is a pretty potent Festus offense down a little bit, and they've done it through, in large part by keeping the ball away. Farmington doing Farmington things. Festus has kind of made a habit of losing some of these close games recently. Farmington, in large part, has made a living winning the close games, but not this year.
Not the last 2.
So 3 minutes left. who's going to make the play or make a mistake, maybe.
How about Jeremiah Cunningham quarterbacking back at Farmington too? This time for the Festus Tigers. That'll be kind of an interesting dynamic. How it plays into that.
Yeah, interesting notes.
I'm sure he's got a lot of friends, back there. They're going to be, cheering him on, sarcastically, I say, in the stands. Maybe, giving him some stuff to say. So that's going to be a really fun game. I think it really will, come down to the very final of it. So Chad will have that call with the coach, Terry Noble, and then the J98 game of the week. We got ourselves another good one here. The Jefferson Blue Jays on the 3-game winning streak, 4-3 record, hosting the St. Genevieve Dragons with a 5-2 record. Garrett Davenport's going to be on the broadcast for this one. It seems like Jefferson, they are playing their best ball of the season at this point. The defense has been good. The offense is figuring itself out, while St. Genevieve is still trying to come back from that Valley Catholic game. And their offense, that they're working through some things over there. This is another one of those, I think, kind of toss-up games.
I think really this one's going to be a real big defensive game. I mean, you talked about Jefferson. Their offense is starting to get into stride, but I think this is going to be one of the top defenses besides St. Pius that they have played this season. And, I think that's kind of when you talk about St. Genevieve, they did put up, other teams put up big points against them, Valley Catholic and Central, but those teams are kind of unicorns in their own little right, along with Seckman, right? But when it comes to St. Genevieve, other than that, they've been played very stout defensively, and so has Jefferson. So I really think this game might be a low-scoring one, in my personal opinion. I could be wrong, but like you said, I think it's a toss-up, and something's got to give. St. Genevieve's been struggling a little bit offensively. Jefferson has been playing well, so we'll see what happens.
Yeah, Jefferson's been running the ball well. The offense is coming along. I know St. Gen, Aiden Butcher, he had to leave at halftime, so I don't know what the status of him will be, the leading rusher for St. Genevieve. He's not out there. Definitely could hurt the Dragon squad, but should be a fun one. I think defensive battle too. I wouldn't be surprised if this is like some sort of 12-6 kind of game if it ends up like that. Garrett's going to be there for the J98 game of the week, and I'll be in studio Friday night. Don't forget about Thursday night, though. Thursday night football, 98.5, Potosi at North County. Make sure you listen into that one. But that is going to wrap up this Tuesday's edition of the Kohl's Tractor and Equipment Football Roundtable. For Hal Neisler, for Chad Speaker, for Garrett Davenport, for our trusty engineer back in the studio, too, Michael Capias, we never forget about you, sir. Thank you for all of your help. And a thank you to Amy Cousins and all the fine folks here at the Applebee's in Farmington. I'm Griffin Weinberg, signing off from the Kohl's Tractor and Equipment Football Roundtable on 98.5 FM.
Oh, hey, about to start.